Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other relevant examinations. Today we have picked up a couple of important articles from the Hindu which can be important both from your pre as well as your mains examination perspective. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article speaks about the internal challenges that Pakistan faces due to shifting of dynamics within Pakistan. What this article speaks about is in a larger picture with respect to Afghanistan and Pakistan, how Pakistan has created its own problems which is facing the present repercussions. So what this article is facing is with respect to the internal turmoil that Pakistan is facing because it has created its own problems. So how are we going to change it? What is the way forward with respect to the internal turmoil is what is this article all about. First up, we have to understand what has happened in the past. When you look into the history books of Pakistan, Pakistan has always been in the state of turmoil. One is because of its own policies and also because of the external factors as well. When you look into what has happened in the past, we have Afghanistan's former president who happens to be Ashraf Ghani, who had made persistent efforts to engage with Pakistan to rectify its strategic errors in the Afghanistan policy. When you look at Pakistan, it has policies with respect to India as well as Afghanistan. Why does Pakistan want the issues not to be settled with Afghanistan? That is because there is something called as the Durand line in Afghanistan. This Durand line is not recognized by the Afghanistan government because it basically believes that a larger area of Pakistan should come within the fold of Afghanistan. In fact, when Pakistan was created after the 1947, Afghanistan did not acknowledge the existence of Pakistan. It also went ahead and said that Pakistan will not be recognized by Afghanistan primarily because of these boundary issues along the Durand line. Similarly, Pakistan also has issues with India as well. It also has a foreign policy doctrine of making India bleed through thousand cuts. So this is how Pakistan operates when it comes to Afghanistan as well as India, where it has border skirmishes between both the countries. Now, keeping aside what has happened with India, we will focus on what's happening with Afghanistan alone. Since Pakistan wants Afghanistan to enter its own state of turmoil, what does it do? It creates a force called as Pakistan Taliban, and this Pakistan Taliban is called as Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. It closely starts operating with Afghanistan's Taliban. So what does it do? If in Afghanistan you have the government establishment, you also have Taliban forces as well. What does Pakistan do? It creates Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and it is this organization which also starts working out with Afghanistan's Taliban, and they ultimately ensure that there is internal turmoil in Afghanistan. So there is government on one side, there is Afghanistan's Taliban on one side, there is funding that is given by Pakistan. So the Afghanistan Taliban is in a constant state of war with Afghanistan's government. So there are internal turmoils that exist between Afghanistan government as well as Afghanistan Taliban. So when there is internal turmoil in Afghanistan, why will Afghan government prior to 2021 and 22, why will it focus on boundary issue? So the intention of Pakistan is after 2001, you had the government of Afghanistan which took over the control. Prior to 2001, you had Afghanistan Taliban which was keeping control of Afghanistan, but after 2001 you had the government which comes into place. The government wanted to ensure that all issues like the Durand line that we just spoke of is ultimately concluded, but Pakistan does not want to do so. So it starts funding Afghanistan's Taliban. The Afghanistan's Taliban starts working out and they create an internal turmoil with the government. So there is tussle between the government as well as the Afghanistan's Taliban. So they are constantly within and engaged with the internal civil war, and as a result this process of border issues will never get settled. Now the Taliban has taken over. There are other issues around the same nature is what is this article all about. Previously, we had former Afghanistan president prior to Taliban taking over Afghanistan. He wanted to end the disputes along the Durand line, and he also wanted to bring about a change with respect to the Pakistan's Afghanistan policy. So they did want to bring out the differences and ultimately conclude it so that they have an amicable relationship. But this was not concluded that easily. Why? Because you might have heard Shashi Tharoor ji always say that when it comes to countries, countries will have an army. But when it comes to Pakistan, has a country. That is the stage of bleak nature that Pakistan has, that they've consolidated the power. The civilian government is just a name, but it is the Pakistani army, Pakistani ISI, which controls the entire governance structure in Pakistan. So despite efforts made by Afghanistan President Ashraf Ghani to settle out the disputes, this did not settle. That is because there is a whole range of command in Pakistan which does not want these issues to settle. Even with India, if there are civilian governments which come up and if there are people who want to end these disputes, the Pakistani army does not want to end the dispute because their very existence is on the basis of brewing the hatred and creating more enmity between the countries. So Pakistan Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa, the head of Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence, Lieutenant General Faiz Ahmed, and Chief of Defence Staff of United Kingdom General Sir Nicholas Patrick Carter wanted to ensure that this entire issue is kept in turmoil. That is because they have a whole chain of command. Even if the civilian government wants to settle it, people want to settle it and want peace between countries, the whole nation, the whole command structure that exists between ISI and army does not want to do it. And these promises that were made by the Pakistani military will often get diluted because everything is under the control of the military and they do not want control of any other mechanism. If there is a civilian mechanism which becomes active in itself, immediately Pakistani army will take over. What are the recent examples? We had Nawaz ji, we also had Imran Khan, who happened to be the Prime Minister. Whenever they become very active, they also start opposing the Pakistani military. Immediately they will be thrown out of power. Such is the state of political affairs that happens in Pakistan. So promises that were made were not upkept when it comes to Afghanistan. Next, what we had is, after this entire saga happened, we had Taliban, the government, as well as Afghanistan's government, as well as United States of America, which entered into a kind of an agreement. The agreement said that there will be power sharing, so on and so forth. Ultimately, United States of America withdraws from Afghanistan. So the minute United States of America withdraws from Afghanistan, you had Taliban take over the entire country. So what exactly happens? Taliban's unexpected triumph in Afghanistan may have been problematic to the people in that particular country. Why? Because women's rights are taken away. They are now under subjugation. Education is off for the women. There are no human rights whatsoever. Sharia law immediately comes into picture. While every other country is not wanting to recognize Taliban, one country is happy that Taliban has come into picture, and that happens to be Pakistan. So initially, Pakistan was happy that in Afghanistan, what they have is a long-term friend who's taking control over Afghanistan, but then it also has its own share of repercussions. What are the own share of repercussions? And that is to do with Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So Afghanistan, Taliban took over the power in Afghanistan, but then you have Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which is in Pakistan, which has actually supported Afghanistan's Taliban in the past. They are creating problems for Pakistan. So it is the creation of Pakistan. Tehreek-e-Taliban is the creation of Pakistan. So Pakistan, which had created this extremist organization to support Afghanistan's Taliban, is now reaping the disadvantages, primarily because it is also also creating turmoil for the Pakistan within the government circles. So what Pakistan created in the form of Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan to coordinate with Afghanistan's Taliban, it is this organization which is right now creating problems for Pakistan's army. So what are the problems that it is creating? When you look at Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, it is an extremist organization. This extremist organization now has couple of other extremist organizations in Pakistan who all come under the ambit of this particular group. Many allied groups who were under different organizational setup, they have all broken up and these were consolidated and they are now part of the Tehreek-e-Pakistan. So 40 allied groups have joined their ranks. This has also intensified the rank of radicalization as well. Why? That is because when you look at what is happening in Pakistan right now, a certain section of people were completely eliminated within the government folds. It is only a few section of the people who have consolidated the power. So those people who are not able to get the power, they wanted to come to power in Pakistan, but they were not able to come. So these forces who wanted to come to power, wanted to be in army, wanted to be in the civilian government, they do not have the power right now. So they have engaged in radicalization. They were in splintered groups and now they're all consolidated in this Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So all those groups who wanted power, did not get power, are now under Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So there is a sense of radicalization that is taking place. There is a sense of radicalization, extremism that is present in Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and ultimately they are taking over the regions of Pakistan and they are creating ruckus and recklessness in certain pockets of Pakistan. And as a result, what we see is Pakistan army is not able to control these forces. Because they are not able to control these forces, they have to put the blame on someone else. So what do? They put the blame on Afghanistan's Taliban. So they now go on to say, since they are not able to control their homegrown extremist organization, they put the blame on Taliban that is in Afghanistan. But Taliban which is present in Afghanistan say that this is your domestic concern, this has nothing to do with us, so don't put the blame on us. And now the issue is, most number of people, the marginalized who wanted power, the Pashtuns and the Baluch community who wanted to get power, and now they are radicalized, are part of this Tehreek-e-Taliban. And apart from that, there are issues on the financial front with respect to the government, governance front, corruption issues. All this is being exploited by the Tehreek-e-Taliban. So those people who are not happy with the government, so it is asking, come join us and then you will be able to run the country. So the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, because of the economic issue, governance issue, corruption issue that is unwavering in Pakistan, those people who are not happy with it, come and join us, says Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So economic stubbles, governance lapses, fragmented political elite and societal divisions exist in Pakistan, and all those people who have grievances against the government are joining the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Now the question is, since Afghanistan's Taliban had good relationship with the Pakistani government, why is it not speaking to the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and ultimately coming and helping the government? That is because it is not that easy. Why is it not that easy? That is because they have their own share as well. What are the issues? First, the Afghanistan Taliban avoids taking strong action against the TTP to avert internal division, preventing the potential loss of its rank to the TTP. What do we understand by this? Let's say all of a sudden if Afghanistan Taliban tries to rework its plan and wants to ensure that this divide that is there in TTP does not harm the government. If it decides to do so, if it wants to speak to the TTP, it will not do so. That is primarily because it is in an apprehension, what if its own cadre people who have good relationship with TTP end up becoming part of TTP and go against the Afghanistan's Taliban. Such is the case of issue that exists, and as a result what they do not want to do is they do not want to speak to TTP because it feels its cadre may also join the TTP. To avoid it, it is not speaking to TTP and it is not having any relationship with the TTP. Second, the Taliban comprehend that antagonizing the TTP could result in them losing secure havens across the Durand line. Prior to after 2001 and up until Taliban took over the power, they had control over the Durand Line. So you have the Afghanistan's Taliban. So on one side you have Afghanistan's Taliban, on the other side you have the TTP, which is based in Pakistan. So along the Durand Line, the TTP has always supported the Afghanistan's Taliban. So these had become the safe havens for the Afghanistan's Taliban. So whenever the government was taking over the Taliban, so it is these forces who were helping them. So TTP has provided shelter to the Afghanistan Taliban along the Durand Line. Now, if they start blaming the TTP and want to take over, capture power from the TTP or even speak to the TTP, the problem would be next time if they want the support, they may not give their support. So they are also avoiding as well. In fact, the TTP has also consolidated the power in this particular region. They've also requested other radical organizations to come and join them as well, and this could also challenge Afghanistan's Taliban power. So they do not want to speak up to TTP right now. Third, Pakistan's historical use of religious madrasas to exert influence and issues fatwa against Afghanistan government is now in the control of Afghan Taliban. So Pakistan will not be able to do anything, and at the same time, Pakistan once tolerated public charity to fund Afghan Taliban, and now these Afghan Talibans are funding the TTP groups. So they have a symbiotic relationship with that exists. So historically, it is Pakistan which has created this group, and now it is this group that is harming the reputation of Pakistan. So Afghanistan Taliban has secured a strategic foothold within Pakistan. This was achieved through the backlog of entities such as TTP and other radical groups operating within Pakistan. So because they have got the support of TTP in the past, and because they do not want any differences right now, they are not ready to speak to the TTP. So what is that the Pakistan government will have to do? What is the way forward? When you consider countries like Soviet Union in the past has supported terrorism basically to remove United States of America's presence. But these countries have also felt that if we support terrorist forces in the past, this could ultimately harm us. So they have stopped funding the terrorist organization. They have abandoned the practice of backing global militant groups. It is right now Pakistan's time to actually rework on it. So Pakistan should stop working on the non-state actors. It should stop backing the non-state actors, and ultimately all those extremist organizations which it had funded once should be stopped, so that these are completely eliminated. But Pakistan does not believe so. It has a policy of making countries bleed through thousand cuts. So it will continue to promote non-state actors. Because it continues to promote non-state actors, it will continue to harm its own nation. Added to it, the nation's military redefined its role to prioritize the interests and welfare of the populace, respecting the mandate of the civilian government. This again does not happen, but for the sake of reading the article, but for the sake of writing the answers, you can take this as a recommendation. Both these will not work, because the very existence of Pakistan is on the basis of army, the non-state actors. But for writing answers, you can give these recommendations, but ultimately Pakistan does not believe in these policies, because its very existence is on the basis of army capture of power. So civilian government will have no role, and the state and the non-state actors will continue to operate, and Pakistan will continue to back the non-state actors. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking of This article here is speaking about climate change and new diseases. As we have climate change issues that is emanating world over, this could also lead to possible new diseases that are coming up. So this article goes on to speak about how climate change has increased the diseases and what are the measures that we may have to take to reduce these climate change factors as well as new diseases. First, what we have to understand is that climate change is here to stay because of the greenhouse gases, because of the anthropogenic factors, because we are entering the homes of the animals as well as the animal kingdom. What we are creating is new range of diseases, all because of the anthropogenic induced factors. So let's take the example of what climate change has been able to do. With climate change, the temperatures have increased, the precipitation has increased, the humidity has increased, or we can also say that there is vagaries with respect to the temperature. Because of the vagaries with respect to the temperature, there are vagaries with respect to the rainfall, the monsoon and the precipitation, and the humidity has also varied as well. So these fluctuations in the temperature, humidity and ultimately precipitation has led to new breeding grounds. So the periodicity of mosquito-borne disease outbreaks no longer follow the expected patterns. Dengue manifests in 2 to 3 peaks throughout the year. Before we could at least understand when dengue would appear, when we could make a control of it, but now we are not able to take control of it primarily because of the increase in the temperature, precipitation, humidity, so on and so forth. And the another major reason is with respect to the habitat loss. What exactly happens? Because of agricultural practices and also industrial practices, what do? We enter into the forest areas. So we have the forest areas. Ultimately, these forest areas were the areas where the human habitation was completely less, or in fact it could also be negligible as well. But because of the ever increasing population, we have also taken over the forest areas as well. There is large scale felling of trees as well. So once there is large scale interference of the humans into the animal kingdom, animals obviously will start entering those areas where the human habitation exists. Earlier, there was no interference between the humans and the animals. Now the animals are entering the areas where the humans are living. That is, in fact, we have entered their place and we are living in the animal kingdom, and as a result, there is spillover effects that is taking place. Let's say, for example, there is a virus that a particular animal will have. This virus will not infect other animals, but now all of a sudden we have the human beings. The human beings have entered this particular area, and because they have entered this particular area, the humans are not resistant to these viruses, and ultimately what we have, this new share of viruses that enters. So the Nipah virus, or in fact the COVID-19 which we all suffered, is all because we entered into the homes of the animal kingdom and ultimately we entered the forest areas. So the habitat loss is creating new viruses. These viruses may not harm other animals, but it will obviously harm the human beings because we are not immune to these viruses. Then there are other environmental sources as well. For example, we enter into medical tourism. Then we have started drinking contaminated water and we have started eating contaminated food. So all those sources which were once clean have been polluted because of the industrial activities, and these industrial activities also destroy the forest habitat as well, and as they destroy the forest habitat, this is further leading to man-animal conflict, and there are increasing cases of the invasive species, and they have started extending the range of the existing life forms, and ultimately what we are witnessing is climate change factors exacerbating this entire issue of disease. So the diseases basically are zoonotic diseases. These diseases should not have actually infected the human beings, but because we have entered their areas, this is actually infecting us. In order to overcome this particular issue, there was one of the program initiated by the government of India called as the Disease Integrated Disease Surveillance Program. This was rolled out in few states in 2007. From reporting 553 outbreaks in 2008, it last reported 1714 in 2017. It was phased out in favor of a new renewable web-enabled near real-time electronic information system called as Integrated Health Information Pattern. This was launched in 7 states in 2018. It added 20 additional disease conditions over IDSP's 13 and could present disintegrated data to the user. But this aggregated data was not given to the user, and ultimately over a period of time, this particular program also became an unsuccessful one. So over a period of time, there have been issues, the surveillance were not proper, and this program were not keeping up to the up-to-date technology. So this particular program was not able to capture the real-time tracking of all the diseases that was emanating. And as a result, what we require is new approaches to understand how climate change has exacerbated this entire issue of disease and what we have to do. So this article currently goes on to say that what we can make use of is called as the One Health approach. So what do we have to do? We have to come up with what is called as the One Health approach. So for us to come up with one health approach, this will require multi-stakeholder approach. What is this One Health approach? Basically, you will have the government coming up together, you will have the private coming up together, you will also have the civil society coming together, and within the government what you will have is different ministries, you will also have different departments, and you will also have the medical fraternity as well as doctors as well as the scientific committee. So on one side you will have the medical fraternity, on the other side you will also have is the scientific committee. All these community people, that is the government, the private and the civil society, and within the government the ministries, the departments, the medical fraternity and the scientific committee all come together to understand how that issue is emanating and ultimately draw conclusions from that particular issue and divulge and give out the information to the people. So the One Health integrates monitoring human, animal, plant, environmental health and recognize the interconnectivity nature. So if there is an issue that is emanating from an animal, how is this issue emanating? The scientific community will get the data, and what this data is all about will be immediately transferred to the medical community, and the medical community will also immediately issue the guidelines. It will be constantly monitored. So it is not divided approach, but instead it is a consolidated approach. So this consolidated approach will ultimately take a look at the zoonotic disease, neglected tropical disease, vector-borne disease, antimicrobial resistance and environmental contamination. So all these groups who are working as independent organizations will now come together, ensure that they have one single answer to this entire problem. Earlier, one department had a question, they were giving one answer. Another department had a question, they were giving another answer. So this answer was not able to answer the question which was asked, and now what we have is one single approach of One Health which is able to answer all these queries. So safeguarding the ecosystems, curbing the greenhouse gas emissions, implementing active pathogen surveillance will be done by this One Health, which basically means a synergy and understanding of cooperation is developed, and what we will require is greater synergy between the center and the states and their varied specialized agencies. In fact, we have the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister who has been taking this lead, but with new World Bank and other large funding in place, this will need greater coordination and management. So we already have the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister who is planning to come up with the One Health approach, but with more World Bank funding and with cooperation with the states as well, we will be able to mold this platform, create this platform and ultimately ensure that such issues does not occur. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Karnataka's monumental challenge. We recently did discuss in our daily current affairs discussion that we have Hoysala temples in Belur, Halebid and Somnathpura which were recently added to UNESCO World Heritage Site. So this is something that we from the people of Karnataka, we all have to be feeling great about it, and at the same time we also have to feel that there are some issues within this particular region that we have to address. So what is that we have to focus? So then when we speak about Karnataka boasts of harboring the second highest number of centrally protected monuments in the country after Uttar Pradesh, the highest number of state protected monuments. So remember, there are two important facts here, that the highest number of centrally protected monuments is most in Uttar Pradesh. So we have centrally protected monuments, the highest is protected by the central government in the state of Uttar Pradesh, and immediately following it is the state of Karnataka. It faces challenges ensuring protection to the lesser known cultural properties. Without such protection, these properties could be encroached on or lost. So what is the concern? This article currently goes on to say that when it comes to couple of monuments in the country, there are few monuments which large number of people visit. This is obviously taken care of, but there are some places which may not be visited by large number of people. So such monuments and heritages where large number of people are not witnessing or coming up to that particular place, there can be encroachment that can happen. There can be people who can take over this particular locality, and this, if not monitored properly, there can be encroachment and this could lead to loss of that monument, is this article. So what should we do? We should basically identify such heritage site and also document them as well. What do we mean by documentation? Let's say, for example, there is a monument. This is the boundary of the monument. So what should we do? We should identify, take photograph, conduct a drone survey, and also take an aerial survey of this particular monument and say that this is the boundary of the monument. So we should also make sure that within 50 meters or 25 meters or 10 meters there has to be a boundary that is drawn so that there is no interference. So first we have to identify where this heritage is, where this monument is, and we should take the photographs and survey of this particular mechanism and immediately draw a boundary around it so that there is no capture or there is no encroachment in this particular locality. The second major factor that we have to do is start funding. As of now, when you look at funding, you have the central government funding, you also have the state government funding as well, but this funding is not enough. Why? That is because as of now what we have is the PPP model that has come into picture. It is the PPP model which is able to monitor this particular locality, and there is a certain amount of money that is given to the departments to take care of this particular monument as well as this region. But the money that is given to this particular department to take care, 50% of it goes to only the salaries of the people who are taking it. The other 50% is only going to the safeguarding and the conservation. So the major problem right now is that the funding has been given to that particular region as well as to that particular monument, but since 50% of it is going only for the salary, the conservation part, the developmental aspect is taking a hit. And the author goes on to say that many in the near future, that is the monuments as well as its structure, may also disappear because of the developmental pressure as well as the forces of modernization. So because there could be developmental activities that can take place in and around that particular area, there will be encroachment by the illegal entities and by the government as well as by the government prescribed authorities. There will be developmental activities which could harm that particular monument. And added to it, when you look at all these monuments, it is not standalone. What do you mean by standalone? It is not one single monument and there is no other monument or places in and around it, but this means that it is not a standalone, which means that there is this monument and attached to it you also have the houses of the people. People have been living around this particular area for a very long period of time, so they may also enter this area, they may also encroach this area, they may also start living in that particular area and slowly start taking over this area, and as a result this has become another major impediment. So we have to address all these issues, says the author. In order to overcome these issues and the paucity of the funds, the government has launched Adopt a Monument scheme under the tagline Namma Smaraka. About 280 monuments have been listed as eligible adoption, which entails maintenance and creating facility for the tourists. So what has the government done? The government has given a sponsorship program to the organizations. Let's say, for example, there is one of the hotel, or let's say there is one of the organization which wants to take over this particular property and also want to derive profits, but at the same time will ensure that this particular property is protected. But these organizations or the NGOs and the groups will mostly focus on some of the reputable monuments, for example Halebeedu, or it can be Belur, so on and so forth. But some of the least ones, that is, they are unheard of, such monuments will come under threat, such will come under the encroachment. They will also have to be taken into picture, says this article. So this article currently goes on to say that if we are able to address these concerns and ensure that there is proper funding, there is developmental activities not within this particular area, and more people are given an awareness about these kind of monuments, we would be able to prevent the encroachment, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Indians eat more salt than World Health Organization's recommendation. This article goes on to say that we have more Indians who eat more salt than what is prescribed by the World Health Organization. So more consumption of the salt will lead to more blood pressure. This more blood pressure could also lead to cardiovascular disease, which happens to be a non-communicable disease, and as a result this can lead to more spending by the people as well as mortality, is what is this article all about. So the estimated mean daily salt intake in India stands at 8.9 gram a day for the men, 7.1 gram for the women, against the World Health Organization recommendation of up to 5 gram daily. So what is the benchmark that is given by the World Health Organization? It is 5 gram daily intake of the salt, but what is that we Indians are doing? It is at about 8 on an average, 8.9 for the men, 7.1 for the women, and as a result what we are eating or intake of salt is far in excess to the World Health Organization. So what is it that we are using? We are making use of the namkeen, papad, packaged chips, preserved canned and salty product including pickle, homemade high salt content food such as chutney, panna as well as pickle, dairy products such as salt, such as processed or the packaged food is where we are consuming a lot of salt. This could lead to increase in the high pressure. This could also lead to cardiovascular disease. So control of these activities and intake of salt is the necessity, says this article. So what is that you have to remember? One is the benchmark. The benchmark is 5 gram intake according to the World Health Organization, but in India what we have is 8.1, which is an 8 grams, which is the average in India. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is important from the environment perspective, environment and ecology, and also from geography perspective. This article goes on to say that balsams, which are also called as touch me not, are in full bloom in Munnar, called as Kasitumba and Onnapuvu locally. Its small pink flowers are a major attraction along the Devikulam stretch of Kochi Mash Dhanushkodi National Highway. So the first important factor that you have to know is about balsam. Balsam happens to be the touch-me-not plant. It happens to be of the genus Impatient. And where is it seen? It is seen in Munnar in Idukki district of Kerala. And when we speak about it, the balsam is one of the important species. It is colorful as well, and it is also an important plant which is a kind of diversity in our country. The new species of balsams are being discovered in all these areas. Balsams are endemic to the high ranges. There are more than 30 species of balsams in the Periyar Tiger Reserve. Second important factor is with respect to the Periyar Tiger Reserve, and as part of the assignment you have to put on the comment section where is this Periyar Tiger Reserve. And there is another mention of Annamudi. Annamudi is the highest mountain in the Western Ghats, and it is another important pointer from the preliminary examination point of view. And this article also makes a reference to Eravikulam National Park. What you have to put on the comment section is where is this Eravikulam National Park? Please put it on the comment section. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. In case you are liking these videos, please do like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share it to your fellow aspirants as well. In case you want me to discuss any of the topics in Indian polity or in international relations, please put it on the comment section so that we can discuss that topic. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.